That's all right.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you would, just come to order. Appreciate and welcome everyone to the Transportation Committee meeting, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone here and all the ladies out there. But before we get started, we're going to ask Representative Fry if he would lead us in a word of prayer.
Bow your heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for everything you've given us. We thank you for the opportunity to serve our state and the people of this state, making decisions that affect their lives daily. And we just ask that you would bless this committee and the people in this room with wisdom enough to make the best decisions that we can on behalf of the people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Representative. All right. We always like to try to start our meetings with an opening presentation, so we're going to do that today on railroads and freight, since the bill we're going to be talking about today has to do with freight logistics. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Connor, Poe, and Craig for our Mark. If you're going to introduce them, or you just go? All right, the great Mark Middleton.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name's Mark Middleton. I'm here on behalf of the Georgia Railroad Association and introduce Craig Camuso with the CSX Corporation and Connor Poe with NS. I was going to take about a minute and just give you a quick overview of the industry. You know, our association consists of our two Class 1 railroads, from whom you'll hear from today, and also our approximately 25 short lines. Many of you are familiar with their operations throughout the state. We have provided you in your materials today some documents. The top document is a map that shows the placement of the short line railroads around the state, then also where the Class 1s come to and through the state of Georgia as well. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say on behalf of the association, we're deeply grateful for your effort in bringing forth the resolution today. You know, I think there was a time in transportation where we all saw ourselves doing slightly different things, and there was some competition. You know, we could be in a fight one year with the trucking industry or the road pavers, but I think increasingly over the years, and in a large part of your leadership, we're in a situation now where we see ourselves as part of a network. And so, you know, the work that this committee's done on highway with 170, the work you've done on transit and now taking up freight and logistics is greatly appreciated. And with that, I'll just ask our two members to come to the front and begin their presentation.
Chairman, you want us here, or do you want us here?
Wherever you're most comfortable is
Okay,
fine.
I'm going to stand if that's okay.
Okay.
I don't have any PowerPoints or anything. I will start off and say that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I appreciate you guys having us here. My name is Connor Poe. I am the Resident Vice President of Government Relations here in Georgia for Norfolk Southern Corporation. I want to let you know, too, that not to show any favoritism, but the North Georgia headquarters for Norfolk Southern Government Relations is in the chairman's district, and just want to make sure everybody on the committee knows that. I'm a constituent of Chairman Tanner's.
That headquarters is in your house, correct?
Correct.
I just
Correct.
wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Correct. 'Cause I am the only government relations representative in Georgia for the company. So, well, just real quick, I just want to give a little bit of background of Norfolk Southern while we're here. We're a very old company. We're a combination of around 300 railroads total along the eastern seaboard. In 1982 is when we actually became Norfolk Southern. Corporation. We actually merged with a railroad that you all are very familiar with, Southern Railway, and a Norfolk and Western Railroad up in the northern part of the country. Another railroad that many of you are probably familiar with that who maybe you have ridden this railroad when you were younger was the Central of Georgia, the Nancy Hanks and some other very infamous passenger train were part of that many years ago. You've got some information in your packets, and I'll just go over that quickly. We're fairly large. We have about 20,000 route miles, stretching from all the way from the northern part of Florida to upstate New York, as far west as Kansas City. CSX has got is the one who stretches the furthest south into, and Craig will go over that in his comments, but they're pretty prominent in Florida. We've got about 27,000 employees nationwide in over 22 states. Now, the interesting part of this is the Georgia details. We have a very heavy presence in Georgia. Probably go through most of your districts, somewhere. About 1,700 miles of track in Georgia. We actually own about 615 bridges. So between 1,700 miles and 615 bridges, you can guess we have a lot of maintenance in Georgia. Currently, we do about $90 million a year in maintenance in the state of Georgia alone. That's about, I think Craig will probably tell you, and I think we probably told many of you that about 20 cents out of every dollar that we bring in goes to the maintenance of our railroad. Just like we have to maintain our roads and bridges for pedestrian use and trucks, we maintain our own tracks. That comes out of our money. That comes in. That's about 20 cents of our out of every dollar. And just because these ports and everything else and the amount of trains coming through Georgia, you can imagine that these tracks get beat up pretty good. Most of this is ties, railroad ties, and rails. You've probably seen all the railroad ties along the rail. Well, we have to switch those out, and that's what we're doing every single year. We're constantly doing that. In your cities, you'll see that we come in and do a lot of work on your crossings. It's not the most pleasant work, and it gets a little bumpy for a couple months, but we have to do that because of the amount of traffic then coming over those tracks. We travel. We move from Savannah to Macon, Valdosta to Macon, Macon to Atlanta. We go to cities, we touch cities like Augusta, Columbus, Albany, and then to Chattanooga, and then we obviously connect over in Birmingham. Currently, we have about 5,000 employees in the state of Georgia, $350 million payroll, and I'm excited to tell you guys and all y'all guys and gals, and obviously if you've been following the news the last couple months, we made an announcement back in December that Norfolk Southern is going to be moving its headquarters to Atlanta. We will be here in 2021. We'll have some folks that are going to be coming in here in the next couple months. The average, there's 1,500 jobs moving in. The average salary on the number of jobs that we are bringing in is $125,000. We don't expect everyone to move. There's a lot of folks that have had a long history and a lot of family up in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia that will not move. They will retire and stay. So we expect there to be a lot of quality jobs that are going to open up in Atlanta in the next couple of years for Norfolk Southern. So if you know anyone interested, be on the lookout. We have a great internship programs and everything else that are going to be here, along with the ones we already have. So a lot of opportunities. We're going to be right down in Midtown at 3rd and Ponce with a beautiful brand new 800,000 square foot headquarters. So we look forward to that becoming part of the Atlanta skyline. I want to talk about the commission just for a second and the need for that. That's something Chairman Tanner's been talking about for a long time. And I want to talk about some of the projects that Norfolk Southern is partnering and doing on our own now. This commission obviously is going to help on a lot of projects, but we have to go ahead and get ready because we're getting a lot of pressure out of Savannah with the increased amount of freight coming in at the port to be able to get our railroad ready. And right now, if you know anything about the rail in Georgia, a lot of it's single lines, one main line. Up north, they have 4, 5, 6 main lines. We have one main line a lot of places, some double main lines. So we have to build a lot of sidings. And sidings is just like a caution lane on your road, just where you park trains so other trains that are coming through can move through faster. So just a couple quick projects to go through that might touch some of your areas. We have a siding that we're getting ready to build right outside the Port of Savannah. Currently, it is a 7,000 foot siding. We're getting ready to double the size of that. It'll be a 14,000 foot siding where we can fit 1 or 2 trains in this siding, so then we can move the freight from Savannah and into Savannah faster. That right there is about $1 million investment from us. We're partnering with the port on that project. There's 2 bridges in Macon that are 1 foot short. So we have 2 lines that run from Macon to Atlanta. Currently, we can run double stack containers on one of those lines. This is the line that runs up through Henry County. And we are getting ready to work on 2 bridges in Macon that will allow us to run double stack containers on both of our lines from Macon to Atlanta. Those bridges have to be raised. One bridge in Macon is going to be demolished and rebuilt. The other bridge is going to be actually jacked up 1 foot to be able to allow us to run double stack container trains to and from Savannah up through Atlanta. We are partnering with GDOT on this project. It's an 80-20 split. This money is coming from House Bill 170 that you all had that you all helped us get done a couple years ago. All of you maybe saw on the news as well. We're partnering with GPA again on the new Hall County Gainesville Inland Port. That's expected to be open in about 2 years. It's about a $5 million investment out of us. We're partnering with GPA on that. That facility alone there's looking at max do about 150,000 containers a year. It's going to be a very busy inland port. The last I want to talk about is another siding down in the Macon area. We are building our own siding. We're not partnering on this. This is out of need for what's coming out of Savannah and Brunswick and actually in Florida of all the intermodal that's coming through. We're building a brand new siding down in Macon that is a 14,000-foot siding. That is a $12 million investment by the company to get ready and be prepared for all the freight that's coming through. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, and I can vouch for Craig Camuso on this, is that we are it's very easy to get in touch with us. If you need our cell phone number, we'll give you our cell phone number. Everybody seems to have some kind of request or issue with the train companies. And if you have an issue in your local town, if you have somebody who has an issue, just call us. And, we work with mayors, we work with city councils, we work with county commissions, and, we may not be able to move the train, but we're going to be able to give you information on getting that train and when it's going to move. And a lot of times that's just what people just want to know. They just need information. A lot of times they don't know. If it's an emergency, obviously you call the number on the sign. That's what we tell folks to do. But a lot of you will have our personal information, and we'll have no problem with getting on the phone with you and helping you just to get some information back to your locals if they have some questions on the on trains. So that's Norfolk Southern snapshot. I'll turn it over to my counterpart, Craig Camuso.
Tell you, I hear about the number of folks that are coming down from Norfolk and the amount of money they're going to be paid, and I might be applying for a job myself over there at Norfolk Southern at some point. My name is Craig Camuso. I'm the Regional Vice President for State Government Affairs for CSX. I'm headquartered here in Atlanta. CSX is headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, which, while not a part of the state of Georgia, there are a lot of folks that do consider Jacksonville to still be part of the state of Georgia. And fortunately, over the last couple of years, at least the Georgia Bulldogs have felt that Jacksonville was part of the state of Georgia. CSX is, like Norfolk Southern, operates in 23 states, all east of the Mississippi. If you think of a line that runs from New Orleans to Chicago to Detroit, going east, that's where CSX operates. We have about 21,000 miles of track throughout our network. 1,600 of those are in the state of Georgia. Here in the state, we employ about 2,000 employees. We have facilities located throughout Georgia, and of course the crown jewel of our Georgia facilities is the Waycross processing facility, which when it's running will process about 2,500 rail cars a day, which is an awful lot. It's one of the largest rail facilities on the East Coast. In addition to that, we have intermodal facilities and 2 intermodal facilities in Fairburn, which join up with Norfolk Southern's 2 facilities for 4 here in the metro Atlanta area. One is right here located in the shadow of the state capitol. It's our Halsey Yard, which is right down to Cab Avenue. And then we have another one in which we just did a major expansion in Fairburn, Georgia. Like Norfolk Southern, which will have their inland port partnering with the Georgia Ports Authority in Gainesville, we have one that just opened up in Murray County, and we did the ribbon cutting on that, and it's up and running now. Ribbon cutting was done back in the fall. We're very excited about the opportunity for that, because what's going to happen here in Georgia is you have Georgia and Florida. And the projections are right now that pretty soon the populations of Georgia and Florida are going to exceed that of New York and New Jersey. And what's going on is those people are all moving to the south, and they are looking and needing the very things that the railroad moves. They need refrigerators. They need microwave ovens. They need automobiles. Their houses have to have electricity. So we move all those types of products into and through the state of Georgia to serve the citizens of the state. We also see with the port expansion, the mega rail facility that's scheduled to open in 2020, I believe, is the intent of that is to reach into the heartland of the nation. And CSX operates through a network that serves 2/3 of the United States population. And a lot of those goods are coming in through the Port of Savannah, which, as you all know, is one of the fastest growing ports in the nation. And conversely, we're also going to be shipping an awful lot. The manufacturing sector here in the state and the manufacturing sector in the southeast has kind of had a rebirth, if you will, kind of a renaissance. So we're seeing that a lot more activity there. Among the major companies that we serve here in the state of Georgia, Kia located over in West Point, thanks to a lot of hard work by a lot of people, but they located there because it was on a main line of CSX. We enter into Atlanta through 5 areas, if you think about it. We come in through Athens, we come over from Augusta, we come up from Waycross, we come down from Chattanooga, and I'll get into that in just a second, and we also come up through the Sonoya and LaGrange area. Now, CSX also operates what's called the Western Atlantic Railroad, the WNA, which runs from Chattanooga to Atlanta. Now, that line is actually owned by the state of Georgia, and 2 years ago, this body, the Georgia legislature, authorized the state of Georgia through legislation to renegotiate and update the lease. So I'm happy to say the lease is almost finalized. We're waiting for final word from the Surface Transportation Board, and CSX will operate that line for another 50 years at a minimum through the year 2069. So there's a lot of activity going on with the railroads. We're happy where we are. We're proud to be part of the state of Georgia. To Connor's point, we have an open lines of communication with you. Those of you that have CSX operations through your districts, feel free to contact me anytime. As a matter of fact, if it's okay, I had an issue with Representative Taylor this morning that we're able to work out. I've talked to Representative Carpenter about some of his stuff up in the northwest part of the state. And of course, work with Representative Nowitz a good bit on some issues. I'm happy to say that if it's okay, that part of the agreement of the WNA is that we're going to extend the Silver Comet Trail an extra couple of miles that will certainly please the folks in your district. So we're happy to sit here and answer any questions that you have. Chairman Tanner, we thank you for your leadership. I'd like to echo Mark and Connor's sentiments on the Freight Commission. We certainly stand very much in support of that and look forward to working with you as this moves forward.
All right, thank you, Connor, and to Craig. Do you have any questions, committee, of either one or of Mark? All right, number 15.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to underscore the cooperation of these two gentlemen when freight trains are left on the tracks in the middle of a residential area. They've been very cooperative in helping find a way so that people can cross at the appropriate time. So there are some areas in southwest Atlanta that have been impacted. And I just want to say thank you for working with me on trying to make it slightly better. I'm sorry that they're moving from your kitchen table to mine, but...
No. That's not the case. The headquarters for the government relations is remaining in my district. And
I see.
It's the
Well,
1,500 employees are coming to yours. I just get stuck with Connor.
Well, should you have a need for a different location at a kitchen table, please let me know.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Representative Jones, I believe that's you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank them too, both Norfolk Southern and CSX, for all you do and being or having presence in Georgia. I just do have one question. I just don't know, what does CSX stand for?
When Connor talked about that, I almost said so. CSX. We had, back in the mid-'80s, the two major railroads merged, the Chessie System, C, and the Seaboard Coastline which probably many of you may have, there's still some seaboard artifacts around the CS. So when we were doing the merger, the attorneys put in, didn't know what we were going to call the company. So they put CS and then the X, because for whatever reason they had to have 3 letters. It never changed. So what we will tell you, I will tell you officially, is it's the Chessie Seaboard, and then the X stands for all of our predecessor railroads. Connor again mentioned about the number of predecessor railroads that were on, that were at, that make up Norfolk Southern. I'll tell you one, if any of you have ever played Monopoly, the oldest railroad in the nation is the Baltimore and Ohio, and if you've ever played and owned the B&O when you're playing Monopoly, that's part of CSX now, B&O Railroad. Just a little trivia.
Now,
Representative Nulowich.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I actually want to take a second just to thank CSX also, and for all of the work regarding this Silver Comet Trail. We're well on the way to connecting the Silver Comet Trail to the Beltline, which is a very big thing in Cobb County. And I really want to thank Craig personally, because the amount of time and energy and effort that went into working with all of the different stakeholders involved in this process was not commensurate to the actual conveyance amount that is being spent on this land, which I believe is $1, $10. Yeah, it's between $1 and $10. Very few dollars. 10, and I wanted to thank you, because that was a long process, and I appreciate all of your patience during that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Al Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lest you forget, I just want to say that the railroads in Georgia, even way back when jobs were scarce, like folk didn't have a lot of good jobs, but as a result of the railroad, there are a lot of widows. They get a good pension, they had good insurance, and that was unheard of in rural Georgia. They had insurance, had pensions, and they still get a lot of those pensions. Now, I'm not saying that the work was easy, because some of the harder, I used to get tired just watching them. But you're to be commended, and we sometimes forget that a lot of middle-class folk are middle class because of early railroad jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Gilliard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Craig and Connor, let me thank you so much for your partnerships and your coalition. We had little parables of issues in Garden City, and you did the extreme makeover. Instead of saying moving that bus, the people were saying move that train. And you all came to our rescue and worked with our mayor and coalition, some opportunities for us to come up with some better suggestions, and it's been very flowing and fluent in Garden City. And then the opportunities that Representative Williams talked about, opportunities in jobs and careers, giving information to a lot of our young people, so that they could afford careers. And I just want to thank you. It's been a great working relationship. We see the progress of the ports, and we're very thankful in Garden City.
Thank you. All right, I believe that's all the questions. Gentlemen, thank you, all 3 of you, for being here, for what you do. We learned who to contact on railroad issues today, but I also want to point out for the new committee members, Josh, raise your hand if you don't care. Josh is with GDOT, because there are a lot of issues that come up, whether it's with railroads, whether it's with our highway department. So it's important. A lot of other members of the General Assembly, especially our newer members, will look to you for questions. So Josh is the point of contact over at the Georgia Department of Transportation. If you don't have his information, I know he'll share it with you. And if you haven't met Josh, he's great to work with, so please do that. And just like it's been echoed here today, Connor and Craig are good to work with on railroad issues that you may have in your area. So again, know who to contact, and feel free to reach out to those individuals. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. All right, going on into the remaining part of the agenda. In your packet, you should have the transportation rules. I believe those are on the left side of your packet. I believe the date may be incorrect at the top, but no proposal to the rule changes. We'll get that date changed to the 2019-2020 session. But the rules would be the same as they were last session if you all adopt those. Also, in your packet, you should have the road dedication rules. one of the things that this committee handles for all members of the House, and we also hear all the Senate road naming bills, and those are important bills to the member who are moving those. That's important to their district, important recognition to the person that road or bridge is being named after. But it's a process that we have to have some rules to go by, and these are the rules in the packet. Again, on that issue, members of the General Assembly will reach out to you all and ask those questions because they know you're on the committee. I will tell you that Abby Day here to my left is the expert in that area. So if you have an issue or if a member has an issue, Abby's here in the building on the 4th floor. Ask them to get with her. She can walk them through the process. This is something we have to have done in a timely manner. There's an ad that's required to be run. A no conflict letter from GDOT has to be obtained. So if you have an interest or have a member that has an interest, this is something you need to move along fairly quickly. All right, I'm happy to take any discussion on the rules or a motion. Chairman, hold on just one sec. All right, we have a motion and a second on the rules now. Discussion, Representative Prince.
It's actually on the, not so much the rules, but on the road dedication piece.
Okay.
Paragraph 3, that says the dedication has to be within the sponsoring legislator's district. What the possibility, is there any, if you wanted to go outside your district, do you have to coordinate, of course you have to coordinate with the legislator who districts that's in, but who actually signs it if it's okay with that legislator?
The way we handle that is if it's outside the legislator's district, of course we want to make sure that that legislator is contacted. If they agree to approve for that particular representative to carry that bill, then they just ask for a letter from that representative whose district it falls in, just stating, I'd like for agree to let Representative Prince name this roadway in my district, and then we move it forward. What we don't want to have happen is have a bridge or a roadway being named in a representative's district, and they had no idea it was taking place. That would be embarrassing to the representative, and so yeah. So now I cannot speak to the Senate rules. I don't know what they require. They are different. We recognize their resolutions when they come over. We don't scrub them at the same level we scrub our own. So that may be different there, but here we require that it be in the district or that district signs off on it. Any other questions? Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion and a discussion, or a motion and a second to approve both the rules of this committee and also the road dedication rules. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right, the rules are approved. And next, I want to, if you'll also take note in your file, you should see the subcommittee assignments, standing subcommittees. You can see on aviation, John Carson chair, Dale Rutledge vice chair, Casey Carpenter and Spencer Fry on railway and transit, and state highways Vance Smith and Terry Anulowicz, and ports Bill Hitchens, Al Williams, and resolutions Brian Prince and Ed Setzler. So those will be the standing subcommittees in this transportation committee for this next 2 years. Also, I will be sending out, I have talked to Representative Smith about this and asked him if he would chair this subcommittee. It'll be a special subcommittee, not a standing subcommittee that'll meet in the off session for the purpose. We've had some conversation around LMIG, and Josh and I've talked about this, looking at LMIG, how that is formula is determined, and any proposed changes to that. That's not something we want to take up during session, but Representative Vance Smith will be chairing a subcommittee that we'll be appointing to take that issue on, and we want to make sure that subcommittee is made up of both rural and metro legislators. So we'll be working on that with Representative Smith to put that together, and we'll authorize that to meet 2 to 3 times, probably 2 times in the off session, and report back to us next session. All right. One last thing I will mention to you before I forget. We also will have our transportation dinner. If you'll mark your calendars, that's going to be on February 25th, and Chelsea will be getting out some specific information on that, but February 25th here in Atlanta for the transportation dinner. We hope that you all will be able to make that. All right, next on the agenda, we have one piece of legislation, House Resolution 37. It's all right with the members of the committee. Since this is a resolution, I'll just stay here and present this to you. This is my resolution. We're going to be working from LC 392085S. You've heard some of our presenters already today talk about some of the work this committee, the House, has led on over the last several years. Many of you on this committee have been involved in those tough decisions. One was House Bill 170 back in 2015. We worked hard on HB 930 last year dealing with rural or metro transit, and we're going to be working hard on transit in the remainder part of the state this session. So we've had a lot of emphasis on highways, bridges, and the roadways. One of the other things you heard a lot of reps talking about on the committee today is thanking our railway folks for helping them with train issues. A lot of folks in our state have trains at block intersections. People where I live, we have problems with trucks and traffic getting to the metro area. And a lot of that increase in both train traffic and truck traffic is a result of freight coming into our state, which is a very positive thing. We have one of the busiest ports in the country, and it's continuing to grow. But we're going to have to, and the speaker announced at the Eggs and Issues breakfast at the Chamber that we had a state-of-the-art port. We needed a state-of-the-art freight logistics system for our state, and that is the next leg of the stool, so to speak, that we as a committee want to take on. So that's what is in front of you today is the creation of the Georgia Commission on Freight and Logistics. You can go through that. I'll hit some high points. We feel that there's a need for a comprehensive strategic business plan to help us remain economically competitive. We're not going to be able, with the amount of freight coming into our state, if we don't have good ways to move that freight both on rail and truck through our state, then we're going to continue to have bottlenecks, and we're going to continue to have complaints, and we're not going to be able to continue to move our state forward. We also know that we've got to know the correct places to invest in our state. We hear about towns that have bottlenecks because of train crossings. We hear about bridges that are weight restricted for trains, so they're not able to either get under them or not able to double up or have the weight they need to be able to get across those particular bridges to move the amount of freight that they're expected to move through our state. So we need a clear plan of where we need to have strategic investment in our state from a freight logistics perspective. Also, at 9 and 10 there, you'll see regarding funding and development relating to freight logistics that the next several years will result in growth of this important industry. This is one of the most important things we'll be able to do as a state is to improve our freight system throughout the state. And this is not just talking about moving freight by rail. That's an important part of this. And the more freight we can get off of the tractor and trailers and onto the rails, the better our roadways will be. But GDOT has in their 10-year plan the conversation around truck lanes on 75 from Atlanta to Macon. That's important. But those types of conversations, we need to be able to have those. And then developing alternative freight routes as a means of improving regional transportation. We know that in certain places across Georgia, there's just issues in small towns with moving freight, both tractor and trailer freight and rail freight, and how can we create and fund alternate transportation routes to do a better job with that. So those are some of the things that we realize are important that lays out the case for this freight, Georgia Commission on Freight and Logistics. One of the things we also have in the legislation, if there's money appropriated for this purpose, that we would be able to, the commission that would be appointed would be able to contract for private consulting help in this effort. That's proven to be successful in the past with some of our work, being able to have experts that are able to pull information from all over the country, quite frankly, all over the world, with how other folks are handling this issue. This is not something that's just unique to Georgia, although Georgia is one of the fastest growing states in the country, but other folks have faced similar issues. The members of the commissions outlined on page 2, and going forward, 3 members appointed by the Lieutenant Governor, One of those 3 members of the Senate would be the Transportation Committee Chair. 3 members appointed by the Speaker from the House of Representatives. One of those would be the Chairman of Transportation. And then 3 members appointed by the Senate who represent the industry, freight and logistics services, that possess an expertise in the operation of a major airport hub, because again, airports are important, moving freight in and out of our airports, or lead a major commodity shipper, major air shipping provider, or a major manufacturing operation based in the state. So it gives and the same for the Speaker of the House. So they have private sector individuals who are responsible for moving freight in different aspects around our state would also serve on this commission. And then 4 members who serve in local government, 2 by the Lieutenant Governor and 2 by the Speaker. Again, a lot of these issues with moving freight involves our local communities, local elected officials. We want them at the table involved in this conversation. That's important. The Executive Director of GMA and the Executive Director of ACCG, the President or Chairperson of the Georgia Chamber, and the President or Chairperson of the Metro Chamber of Commerce. Again, these 2 individuals were very, very instrumental in the committee that went around the state that led to House Bill 170 and being able to have them in the conversation. And then the Commissioner of Transportation, Commissioner McMurray, and our Director of Georgia Ports Authority would both serve as ex officio members of the commission. And then the Speaker and Lieutenant Governor would appoint the co-chairs of the commission that would serve as co-chairs of this commission. This commission would be in effect until the end of this year, the last calendar day of the year. If the commission had information that they felt like needed to be acted on, then they would produce a report and submit that to the Speaker of the House through the Clerk of the House, and could recommend legislation, which most likely would come back through this committee. So that is the Georgia Commission on Freight and Logistics that we would be forming. If you all pass this is a joint commission, so this would have to go over to the Senate, and then ultimately we would come back and have a final agreement before the end of session and stand this agency or commission up. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. Representative Jones.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I certainly applaud your efforts on this and very supportive of it. And thank you for taking a leadership on this, a leadership role on this again. I do want to call to your attention as a matter of constitutional requirements. More recently, or actually back in 1979, Rogers versus Mag dealt with boards and commissions created by the General Assembly, and it ruled then that private organizations cannot make appointments to various boards and commissions. More recently, decided August 27th of 2018 by unanimous consent with the presiding justice, Justice Melton, given a majority opinion, upheld that as well. And so when I look down in here, I see some of these organizations who would be have a member serving on this commission. There is no, I think the more safer route probably is to have someone to appoint that individual, someone that's an elected official to appoint that individual from that individual organization. And I think that would save some constitutional challenges. And here's a copy if you want to give it, a copy of the ruling. I'll give it to your legal.
Yeah, we give that to her. I know that in the past we have not had specific individuals listed or specific positions listed on the, just give that to Leg Council. Specific people listed in our commissions or committee, study committees. But I know in conversations with Leg Council, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, that the commission is different. Jenna, do you have anything to add on that?
No, yeah, that doesn't really apply to study committees. They don't report, they're making a recommendation. They're not necessarily making law. So that delegation issue, I don't think applies to study committees. They're just studying something. They're not affecting anyone's rights. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we actually did discuss that. I discussed that with Leg Council, because we were looking at if the correct way to word that, because you're exactly right. The Speaker or Lieutenant Governor could choose to appoint those individuals. But I asked Lake Council to research that, and they came back with the opinion that because this has no force in law, that we would be okay.
Okay.
Thank you, though. I appreciate you bringing that up. All right. Number 14, is that Representative Nulowich? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to ask real quick, I know that, you know, reading through this and I've been following this as it's evolved, but talking about efficiency and coordination, I wondered if any conversation was also given or discussion was given to safety, to rail safety throughout the state as a part of what this commission will be doing.
Well, that's definitely something that the commission could look at. I think that safety is important, both rail safety and safety on the highways with our truck traffic, and looking at efficient ways to move our trucks off the roadway and put them into barriered lanes like we're talking about doing on 75. But the commission's not specific just to rail, it's freight in general. But yes, that's something that the commission could definitely look at. And I think safety is going to be one of the number one priorities, both for the smaller communities where this is an issue and also our metro areas. Representative Al Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a recommendation that sometimes during the session that we ask Josh to bring us a report. Attached to HB 170 was minority participation. I'd like to see this entire committee get an update on where we are on that.
All right, good. Josh, if you would just put that on, and we'll get with Chelsea and schedule that. Thank you, Representative Williams. All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion. All right, we'll have a motion and a second to pass. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Any opposed? All right, so motion carries, so this will go to rules and on to the floor. So we are, any other announcements? Anybody? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.